Hi everyone, welcome to today's mentorship session. Just let's give the rest like 2 minutes and then we can start off. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. Let me just confirm that the mentor is on the call.
Hello, Hope.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Good evening, everyone. I hope you're having a good week. I know for some of the groups it's been a really busy day. So we'll just go ahead and jump onto it. For those who are joining for the first time, my name is Hope Nduta. I usually host the mentorship sessions for Cyber Shuja and feel very welcome. You can use the Q&A section to ask questions and respond because I know not everyone has access to the chat. Okay, so today we'll be talking about network security. I know for the past 2 weeks we've taken a break from the technicals. We had taken a break from the technicals a bit just to look at soft skills, online jobs, and so on. So we are back at it with network security today. And with us is Brian Kimathi. So we have Brian Kimathi with us to take us through this topic. He is an accomplished IT professional with over 6 years of enterprise in systems administration, network management, and cybersecurity. He holds a degree in computer security and forensics from Jaramogi Odinga University of Science and Technology, and certifications in CISSM, CompTIA Security Plus, and more. Beyond his professional role, Brian actively contributes to the cybersecurity community by authoring articles and trainings on vulnerabilities, data privacy, ransomware mitigation, and more, showcasing his dedication to advancing industry knowledge, and best practices. So that is just a brief about Brian. I believe he'll tell us more about himself, and as we interact, we can get to know him better and also know about network security, just what the industry expects for you as a professional when, let's say, you're applying for network security jobs or just working in IT and interacting with network in general. So, thank you so much, Brian, for accepting this invite, and it's good to have you here. Karibu sana.
Asante Hope. Thank you very much for having me here to mentor companions. I call them companions in the IT information security, in the overall cybersecurity realm, where network security is one of the domains of cybersecurity. So, like Hope has mentioned, I am Brian. I am passionate about IT and security, to be specifically. Today, where everything we do is online, and the cliche about privacy is dead. So it really gives me a motivation to be sure that my job is not yet done. Every day I wake up, I try to change the world at least one fix at a time. So let me share my screen. Okay. So today we'll be talking about network security. I hope has done me a good one by doing me an introduction. I am Brian. I go by the handle Blanco Scheme everywhere online. So if you want to connect, please reach out and I'll be there to help you. So today we'll cover generally 4 major topics: the bigger picture about network security, current threats, tools and tactics, and then we'll do the career path for those who are currently joining network security, those who are beginning, or those who maybe are not sure if they want to go into network security itself. So I'll try to do a general overview about network security so that I don't go too much into the technicalities. I cover most of the basic. I'll try and cover the basics. I'll assume that you are in a network security class, the first ever lecture. So we'll do the basics, the complete basics, which basically will start with the definition of network security. So the reason why I think network security should be more discussed in security circles than it is currently is because networks are the backbone of modern organizations. Any organization that has any internet connectivity, any desktop, any laptop, any mobile phone, servers, it can be as advanced as Safaricom or Google or Tesla, or as basic as a small office. It has to, if there are 1 or 2 devices that are connected, network is the backbone, because the networks connect devices, it enables communication. Data, if you have servers, for example, is stored on a network device somewhere, a server or a NAS or a SAN somewhere. So a single vulnerability, maybe the most common one is update. So I'll use an unpatched server, a server that is not updated, or maybe a firewall that is misconfigured, can lead to a very catastrophic end for any organization that is serious about protecting their data. So when you understand both the threats and their corresponding defenses, you become better prepared to protect against any threat that will be in the field that you'll be facing. Someone is talking. I think someone has unmuted. Okay. So what is network security? By definition, it is a multi-layered approach where, as a defender, you combine both policies, procedures, hardware, and software to protect the CIA triad. The CIA triad in cybersecurity is the basics or the fundamental starting point of what what cybersecurity is all about, where it's the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So network security is a multi-layered approach of protecting the CIA of data. Which data? Data that is residing on a network, static data, or data that is in transit, that is moving in a network. So the basic components of a network security architecture are the hardware and the software. So the hardware, you have things like routers, firewalls, intrusion detection softwares, and also on the software side, we have endpoint security where you protect the mobile devices or the laptops or the desktops, antivirus tools, encryption protocols, etc. Okay, so that is network security in itself. Then after you understand what is network security, you need to go into the CIA triad. What exactly now are you trying to protect in this network? It's the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data as it moves across the network and as it resides inside the network. So there is the aspect of data in transit and data that is static, is not moving. Then you'll also need to address the question that why networks then? I've understood what is network security, the CIA triad, I know about it completely. So why networks? Why are they targeted and why should they be protected? So you find out that networks are centralized a lot, okay? By centralization, it means that modern networks today, when you go into the market, when you go and be you address you are working on a client's network or you are consulting on a network, it's networks often serve as a centralized hub where a lot of sensitive information is stored or is transmitted through that single network. So this information might be personal data, okay, intellectual IP data, intellectual property, patents or trade secrets. We have financial data, okay. So why does this centralization really matter? It matters because number one, these networks contain a lot of what I call concentrated valuable data. So they present they are very attractive target to hackers. If you are an hacker today, and then you are scanning around the network, the internet, and then you find a random server that is open, or you know a certain vulnerability, maybe in Apache web server, and then you find that maybe a prominent bank locally in Kenya has hosted their website on a server which happens to have that vulnerability. They have not patched their vulnerability. You find that you'll smile your way while doing what? While attacking that server itself. So you find that networks, modern networks specifically, are centralized a lot. A lot of data moves within modern networks. So they are really a very attractive target. Another thing why securing networks matters today is the wide impact if an attacker compromises a network. Okay, because once I am inside a network and then probably the network was not configured to be segmented, it is one big network, and then I have access to one single machine in the network. This means that I have literally a whole ticket to the entire organization. I can affect multiple services, applications, or departments simultaneously. If I have a rat or a worm, I can plug it into one machine and it will propagate into the entire network. So the third thing why you should secure networks is the broader reach that networks have. There's this thing which is called supply chain attacks. That is, I have company X. whose network is completely secure. Say CyberShujaa network is very airtight. I cannot find any vulnerability in their network at all. But then it happens CyberShujaa contracts as a third-party vendor to manage their payroll. And this third-party vendor accesses CyberShujaa's network at a certain duration in the month, say maybe from 20th to 25th. So if I could compromise this third party and then wait in their network until they are servicing CyberShujaa's payroll, I can use this supply chain link to hop into CyberShujaa's network. So you find now the broader reach of just one compromise has affected a network that is quote unquote airtight. So when it comes to network security, there are a lot of loopholes that generally need to be addressed. It's not just about the current organizations, the organization that I'm securing or the current network. It's about the entire ecosystem around this network. Who am I connecting to? Who are our suppliers? Who do we get applications from? Do they patch the applications? Can we confirm that the applications will not introduce vulnerabilities in our network? Or about our suppliers, do we have any connections to them? Okay, so you find that when it comes to network security, it's not just about maybe installing firewalls and then configuring the firewall to block any incoming traffic, etc. It's more, usually it starts by analysis. You get the client's needs, then you address those needs as per basis. So here I have a pro tip. Usually when you are configuring networks, the best way is to shut everything down, okay, lock everything, and then just allow exactly what needs to be allowed. Any seasoned network admin will tell you, but for example, when installing a firewall, you block everything and then just allow exactly what needs to be allowed. You assume that every single packet, every single traffic that comes in or out, every single connection, you assume that it is malicious. So you work yourself down from you build with the security in mind. You start with security in mind. You don't implement security after you have built your network. So why networks too? Another thing other than the centralization of networks, it's because networks present a very variety of complex vulnerabilities. What do I mean about this? What this means is today, a single network in a single office, maybe a random office in Nairobi, when you go into a certain floor and then you do a scan of the network or you just walk around and do an analysis of the network, you find that Kitambo we used to have only maybe computers connected in a network, but today they're not just computers. You have a lot of diverse software platforms using the network. We have a lot of hardware components. We have mobile devices. We have guest users. Okay. So now this complexity naturally will introduce a lot of points of failure. And these points of failure are also the vulnerabilities that we are talking about. So this matters a lot now because it poses an activity or a task to you as the defender. Now, how can you address this? All these network devices, can I go updating devices for every user that comes, a guest user that comes? No, I cannot do that. So maybe the best way would be introduce a guest network that is not connected to the internal network at all. Okay, so you address every single scenario at a time and you make sure you address it to completion. That's why I stated earlier that you do an analysis first. What is my scenario? What are my devices? Where will these devices connect to? Are they allowed to connect internally or externally? How much network bandwidth do they need? For example, if you do a QoS in your organization, okay? How much attack surface does these mobile devices expose on our network. How much are Windows devices connected to a network? How much per month, maybe, for example, do they expose vulnerabilities? How about Linux users? How about mobile devices, Android, Apple devices? So you go on a device per device basis. So for example, consider you are working on a company X and you're analyzing their network, and then they have several offices in the region you are working on. I will use Kenya. They have several offices in Kenya, even in Nairobi, for example. And each office has their own network segments, which are managed by different teams. The office in Westlands is managed as a team there. The office in Nairobi West has a team there. Mombasa Road has a team there. So you will find that most organizations will be consistent in how the networks are organized. If there is an Active Directory, maybe there is an Active Directory that is central somewhere, and then maybe we copy this data locally. But now, if there are inconsistencies and misconfigurations between any of these segments, you find that now that supply chain issue comes back. We are now, because we are all interconnected, and we introduce a vulnerability in one segment, and then all of us now are exposed as a result of this. Okay. So when securing networks, you need to go, like any cybersecurity domain, you need to have an attacker's mindset. This means that every single day or every single time you're on the network, you are continually evaluating what are the targets. Okay. And these targets, usually you analyze them from a perspective of ease and reward. Okay, so you analyze each component on the network to determine where can an attacker gain entry with the least resistance or least effort, which is the easiest link. And usually this is the user. So most of the times you'll find they are users' machines, but also other times they are servers, web servers, email servers, even those hosted on the public cloud or public domain. Okay. So about the common threats and vulnerabilities, first, before I forget about network, the fundamentals of this network security, you need to also understand the layers of network security. There are layers. You see, then we define network security as a multi-layered approach where you combine policies, procedures, hardware, and software. But then you need now to understand what are the layers, these layers of network security, where there's a concept in cybersecurity called defense in depth, where you have layered approaches of security. The same happens in network security. There are layers of network security where the outermost layer is the perimeter security, where you have things like the firewalls, the gateway devices, intrusion prevention systems, etc. These are the ones that block the unauthorized external access. So when you are implementing a network security, you need to address the perimeter security as your outermost layer. Now, after that, when you are going, we are coming from the outside coming in. So from the outmost outside is the perimeter security. Now, if you penetrate this, you'll come to the internal security. Here is where you have segmentation and micro-segmentation, okay, to prevent the lateral movement inside the network. This is where you have finance have their own network. You go to IT, they have their own network. You go to sales, they have their own network. So you have subdivided your network, okay? You have segmented your network such a way that you allow data that is allowed to come from finance to any other domain. You allow data that is allowed to come from the web, the IPZ, the web servers, which you might have hosted locally. You allow only the data that is allowed to move from there Okay, remember we said you lock down everything and then you allow only what is allowed to travel in and out. Now, After that, you have the endpoint security. This is where you ensure that the devices connecting to the network are secure. They are using the antiviruses and your endpoint detection tools. Now, all these layers of network security, I'm mentioning them overly. When you go to perimeter security, when you come to firewalls, gateway devices, there are very many types of firewalls, gateway devices, intrusion prevention systems that you can implement. Same applies to internal security. Same applies to now where we are endpoint security. So when you talk about antiviruses and endpoint detection tools, you find that some are standalone antiviruses, some are standalone endpoint detection tools, but some work in a broader, bigger spectrum. For example, I am certified in Sophos. So you find that Sophos have their endpoint detection tools that will run on locally on the machine, but they also have a firewall which runs on the network layer, okay? And they also have a cloud that can, a cloud solution that can protect your devices in the cloud. And then all this can be encompassed on a single dashboard, for example. So endpoint security, you might find organizations that prefer to go a solution by solution basis. Other organizations prefer to go to encompass everything in one big umbrella. Instead of having multiple solutions that you can manage and do this, you might be tasked, go and find us a solution that you can implement, just one solution that can cover all this, and then sell it to us, prove to us that this will solve our problem, this will secure our network, this will work for the CIA of our data, both in transit and at rest. Then the final layer of security is always the user. So user access controls like authentication, multi-factor, role-based access. These are those that control the access to various network segments. If I have an intranet, I don't want to finance people to be accessing the IT part of the intranet. It means that if an attacker will be able to get into the system through finance, then they can access the IT segment of the network, which most of the times is usually the most secure one. So you need to implement role-based access. This also has several ways you can implement this. There's software that can do that for you. You can do this on a network level. So this goes in with organization by organization basis. Depending on where you go, on who you ask, the case will be different and the outcome might also be different. But the end goal is to make sure that all the layers, the 4 layers of network security are covered. The perimeter, the internal security, endpoint, and then the user access controls. So under common threats and attack vectors, I'm sure everyone here has seen all of this here. I'll cover, let's see, 1, 2, 3, around 6, which are most common. The most common one is phishing, definitely. I believe we have all come across phishing emails. Then we have ransomware, which has been the top threat to organizations for almost 5-6 years now. We have zero-day exploits, denial of service, man in the middle, and then spoofing and sniffing. Now, most of these threats and attack vectors today, they will never go away, actually. Things like phishing, zero-day ransomware, this will never go away. So you as a defender, you need to understand the scenario you are in. When you go to secure a network, you need to understand what kind of network is this? What do they do? They handle a lot of user information. Okay, so what are the most common threats that you may find? Maybe phishing, because they handle a lot of user information, because people will try to be faking, impersonating that I am so and so, I need this information, I am so and so doing this. Or maybe you are consulting for a company that does, let's see, like web hosting. So you want to secure the network. So you might find that your case might be different. Now this might be facing a denial of service attack a lot, or DDoS, distributed denial of service. Okay, or maybe even SQL injection for such an instance because they are hosting websites. When an organization maybe is too big, 1,000 or more people, you might find that insider threats are more a risk to this organization. Okay, or zero-day exploits because now a lot of devices are there to be protected. So depending on your certain scenario, you need to go back to the analysis phase and now analyze the type of organization you are working with and then figure out which kind of threats does this organization face. And from experience, most of the time it boils down to the most secure link and most insecure link in an organization is usually the user. So you find that most of the time, most organizations will work to do user training and awareness programs for their users. This is usually in security, we say that the most weakest link in organization is the user and the most secure link is the user. So if you're a user, you can have all the security in the world, but if a user just collects a flash disk on the gate coming in and plugs into your machine, and you have maybe not locked external devices on your devices, who knows what can run on that flash disk. A single user can compromise even the most secure networks. We'll see that in a case study later. Okay, so things like ransomware, for example, now their case is different. User training might fix the phishing part, but if an attacker bypasses the user and now is able to access the data and maybe encrypt it in the case of a ransomware, you need to have done your due diligence and done data backups, or maybe deployed EDR systems to your organizations. Earlier, before, when things like firewalls were coming to market, they relied on what I call the active solutions, where the firewall will, or the endpoint tool will act on a threat once it has occurred or one it knows about. But nowadays you find that with the coming up of AI tools, most security vendors have gone ahead and implemented AI in their tools, such that now most of them can detect, for example, when a ransomware is working in an organization, or maybe even a 0-day, and an exploit that hasn't been detected. And then they use things like pattern recognition. We know that large language models can learn patterns from a lot of data. I know Sophos can do that. I work with it. So depending on your certain scenario, you'll address your case differently. Okay. Allow me to go to the core security controls. Now, after you understand the common threats and attack vectors in your scenario where you are working in the organization, in your case, now you need to understand the core security control in respect to that. Okay. The most go-to, usually everyone mentions firewalls and IPSs, but those are not enough. It's not enough to only put a firewall on your network and then assume that once I lock down everything, blah, 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 we are done. No. Even if that is the case, we have traditional firewalls which relied on IP addresses, ports, and protocols, etc. And then today we have the next generation firewalls, which can go deeper into the packet. They are aware of the applications in the network, and they are integrated with threat intelligence. This can work in real time, for example. So once you understand your threats, you come now to the core security controls and decide, okay, my threat here was phishing. So which is the security control I need to do this? Okay. My threat was denial of service. So which security control do I need to do this? I need to implement DDoS protection, for example. Okay. So depending on exactly what your problem is, a pro tip here would be inside your network, segment the critical assets, for example, using VLANs. Such that, for example, if you decide to implement an intrusion detection system where you'll monitor the traffic and generate alerts, etc., how will it work for the finance department? How will it work for the IP department or for the IT department? An intrusion prevention system, we know that it does not only detect, it prevents the attack. So you need to implement rules, the signatures, and then fine-tune the alert threshold, for example, to avoid false positives. When you come to things like zero trust architecture, where we say that you never trust anyone. Okay, zero trust is always verify, never trust. Which segments of your network should you implement zero trust? Is it the entire network or a specific part of the network? If I have a guest network in my infrastructure where when guests come, they use that specific network, it would be useless for me to implement zero trust there if they are not connecting to my applications in the network. Okay, so your core security controls are determined by your scenario, by your threats and attack vectors in your current scenario where you are currently. There are some that are blanket, but most of them will be specific to what exactly you'll be handling. Say, for example, VPNs. If I am in the network, I don't need to use the VPN, but if I am working from home, I need to use a VPN. Okay. Say physical security. There's no way the physical security can be implemented for me if I am working remotely. This is when I am working at the office. But things like patch management, for example, these are blanket. All devices should be patched up to date always. And you also need to automate things like patch management. So it is up to you to determine now, how do I implement this patch management? How do I sell to the management that they need to automate their patch management, that their softwares for the maybe say the endpoints need to be updated if their Windows every day as a patch Tuesdays. Okay, you need to be able to sell whatever the security control you'll come up with, and then tailor it to the common threat and attack that you are trying to address. You can have a single security control on a single threat, or you can have a blanket one, maybe a security control that covers several threats. It is up to you now to determine how do I analyze my network, how do I analyze my task and figure out what needs to be implemented and where. Okay, so we come to secure network design. What is it? Secure network design is the process of planning and structuring a network. So you plan and then structure this network. What for? So as to protect it for CIA, from unauthorized access, from data breaches, from disruptions, or any other cyber threat. So first of all, you plan, then you structure this network. So this involves some best practices and security principles to do what? To ensure the CIA we talked about earlier. Remember, CIA is usually the baseline of cybersecurity. So there are some design principles inside network security that you need to be aware of. And the most common four are defense in-depth, segmentation, redundancy, and scalability. Now, defense in depth is the layering we talked about earlier, where you have multiple layers of security controls that if the outer layer fails, there is another one that will try to cap the attack. So it makes it harder for any attacker to get through all the layers. And before they get into all through the layers, you might have an alert on your dashboard or through an email, or they might not be able to get in at all. Then segmentation. This is where you subnet your network Of course, this is to limit lateral movement by attackers. This might not be applicable in small networks, but in large organizations, you will almost always want to do subnetting. Sometimes I've heard people say that these mathematics of calculating IPs are hard, blah, 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 but at the end of the day, once it is implemented and live, it helps you a lot to manage the network because it makes each segment in your network appear like a small network on its own. So you can manage it on its own. You can know where a breach has occurred. You can know who is misusing your network. You can do a lot of things with segmentation. Then under redundancy and fail-safe design, this is where you have backup systems, okay? This is because, of course, when you go and study risk management, you will need to maintain operations during any failure or during any attack. When you are attacked, when you are under breach, an attack is currently ongoing, you don't need to shut the organization. You need to design your network such that there is always a fail-safe. Okay, maybe this can be high availability, redundant files, or redundant servers, etc. And then there is scalability. So when you design a network, you need to design with future growth and threats in mind. You need to design this network knowing that it will grow. So the devices here will be more, and the threats it is facing today will change in the future. So you need to leave room for additional controls, additional security controls to be plugged in the future. So under network design, there is this aspect of implementing the least privilege and separation of duties. This point number 3 here. This has become a very big design feature in networks today simply because the least privilege, it grants users only the minimum required permission to do their duties. If I am doing an audit of a network, I don't expect to see machines in the finance department running PowerShell 6 hours a day. They don't need that at all. So that's the least privilege aspect of this. And separation of duty now is where you distribute the critical responsibilities to prevent any single individual from having all the control. So you have someone who does firewalls, who their role is to update the firewalls. So another one still on the firewall might be updating the rules. Another one is doing the patch management. Another one is monitoring the network itself. So now this separation of duties makes sure that if I am able to compromise person X, who is on the firewall, I don't have unchecked access over all the network security. Again, this might be tough on small organizations who might not have the resources, but this can be solved by outsourcing your network management. We have managed detection and response, MDR services. A lot of organizations nowadays are offering MDR services. You can do that if you don't have the resources in-house. Okay. Then there's zero trust and then cloud security. Now, zero trust, I mentioned it earlier, is where you always verify everything. You never trust. This is like, I need to access a server, I need to access documents on our file share. Who are you? I am Brian. I'm given access. Then I logged out. Next time I come, the system should not assume that I am Brian. Maybe an attacker has compromised my email. I need to always verify and never trust. So in this case, you assume that no part of the network is secure at any given time. When you work from this perspective, it will make you to be more proactive than reactive. Than solving the problem, you will be more proactive. Now, in the cloud, when it comes to cloud security, you need to understand two terms in cloud security. There's security of the cloud, and then there's security in the cloud. Okay, so when you talk about security of the cloud, this is the responsibility of the cloud provider. They are responsible for securing this cloud solution for you. If you're using Azure, Microsoft are responsible for security of Azure. But now, if you have virtual machines, networks, servers in the cloud, security in the cloud now is your responsibility. Now, when you go to secure network or you are designing a network design, you need now to, if there's cloud involved and there are devices in the cloud, they will be your responsibility. Okay. So yeah, now things like IAM management, security groups, or virtual private clouds can be used now to isolate workloads and manage the network security there. Another thing about secure network design is the network monitoring, logging, and incidents response. Why is monitoring and logging important? It is important, of course, because now you need to detect any anomalies in real time. You need to detect breaches in real time and as early as possible. You don't need to detect a breach in the morning while it occurred the previous evening. Maybe all your data will be gone by then. Okay. What are the tools you can use for this? You can use SIEMs, etc. SIEM systems are the best for network monitoring. And the benefits for this is because now the logs can be used as forensic evidence. Your shareholders can call you and now put you on the fire that you are not doing your job, but with the logs, maybe it was something beyond you. You can present to them and tell them, this we had implemented a security feature, but something came out of the way. Then we have incident response, is where you have you design a complete incident response plan that if you are attacked, this is what we'll do. These are the steps we'll do to recover our systems back to normal operations. When you're designing a network, you need to have that in mind. So I have a case study here, which is in the global domain, where in 2017, Equifax, which is a credit company in the US, suffered a breach due to vulnerability in the Apache Struts framework. So what happened here is the patch for this was in the public domain. It was issued by Apache several months in advance, but Equifax, for whatever reason, did not patch their system. So the attackers exploited this, and then they gained remote code execution capabilities in the system, and they moved laterally. Ultimately, they accessed the databases with the personal information of people. Okay. So consequences of something like this, of course, there's a financial impact. There's people lost jobs here, of course. Equifax, their reputation was really damaged back then, I remember. And then there's all this data in the public domain of almost 150 million users. Okay. So a case study like this applied in your case when you're designing a network for company X. Look at something like this and then imagine replace Equifax with company X. What if this was me? Okay. What lessons can you learn from such a breach, and how can you use this to secure your networks even more? One of the best, the first one here is the timely patching, timely updates. Of course, if they updated their patch strats, their data could not be breached. The second one is network segmentation, the one we talked up above. If they had subnetted their network, probably the attackers could not move laterally into other networks. And since this vulnerability, this update was in the public domain for a long time, maybe if they had automated patch management, this could have been fixed before it was even exploited. Okay, so this also teaches about something we just mentioned earlier about incident response. You need to develop, document, and drill an incident response plan so that you are prepared to act whenever needed. Okay, so a practical career advice in such a scenario to be familiar with tools that scan for vulnerabilities like Nessus or OpenVerse. Okay, and then maybe consider pursuing certifications that let you know how hackers exploit networks, maybe CEH or CISSP, okay? And also engage in hands-on tools online, maybe try hack me, etc. So now when it comes to your career, where do you go into network security? So all we've discussed above, and especially when it started about what is network security, what are the domains, and then now once you understand the overall picture of network security, then what scenario am I addressing? I've been called by client X to address so and so. So now analyze their scenario, analyze the threats they might face, and then come up with security controls of what exactly is needed in this specific scenario. Okay. And then now certifications and careers, of course, when you go and pitch that you are network security, you'll need to provide documentation that you can actually handle our data. That is on top of signing NDAs and all of that. So the next steps for you, if you are new in network security, or you have a basic idea of network security, on Try Hack Me, there's a network security room. Just go there and try their labs. They will teach you some really hands-on skills about cybersecurity, about network security, on top of the overall cybersecurity domain. They are complete package. I love them. Then you can consider certifications, CompTIA, CISSP, CEH, okay? And then you can also use Cisco Network Academy to learn and also get some certifications, which are some are free, some are paid. Okay, so you can they filled out the information today, especially with the internet, is really big. I also remembered that there are these people who are offering an offer on courses. Can't remember their name. I share with you. Easy Council. Easy Council. I had seen an email earlier from them. They have an offer, I think, for about $1 for almost 15 courses. Yeah, I was checking my email here. You can check them out. They offer general cybersecurity scholarships, courses, and they usually have offers where you can actually get certified for a good price. So that's something you might also want to consider in the network security. So hope I'll ask for questions if there are any. I've done a very broad overview, so let me ask for questions.
Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you so much. That was amazing. Let's take questions. I see Emmanuel's hand is already up. So, Emmanuel, go ahead.
Yes, hi everyone. I hope I'm audible. So, my question was based on the topic of certifications. And I know this question might have come up a lot, but I just wanted to ask it for the sake of this particular session, which is, yes, a lot, if not all companies will require you to have some certifications, but usually the certifications that are required, most of them are paid and people might not have the money to have these certifications, especially for an entry-level role. So what would you advise in such a scenario? Because a lot of times you do have the skills, but maybe your barrier of entry are the certifications and you need the money to get the certification. So it's sort of a catch-22 situation. So yeah, if you could explain that, that would be great.
Sorry, I was on mute. Okay, so if you still want to break into network security and the financial part is a hurdle for you, and Cisco Network Academy has a lot of free certificates that you can go into and do for free. Most of them are free a lot. Okay. So what happens when you are joining in being cybersecurity generally, and then you have, say, like 4 certifications from Cisco Network Academy, which is free, the fundamentals, and then you have also hands-on skills on things like Try, Hack Me, etc. So what happens is you can then demonstrate to me if you meet me on an interview table, and then I've already seen your CV. You have like four certifications from, say, I'll use Network Academy as an example. Okay, which will show certificate of completion. You can have badges and certificates also from Try Hack Me. You can have Cybrary. You can go to Cybrary or Coursera and then learn full courses on cybersecurity or network security specifically. So when you come and meet me there, most probably I'll give you a real life scenario of a solution that you'll have to a network X and X has this problem. Take me through the complete scenario of how you'd solve this. So you find that you have free certificates, but because you are passionate enough to want to go into network security, you took the time to learn how to secure networks in real life. You set up your labs, maybe at home networks. Okay. So doing this, you might not get the job. Usually when I started also, I did never get a job, but what it helped me, I learned what the market wants from me. The market wants experience. So what I did, I volunteered in an organization called United States of Africa as their cybersecurity analyst for like several months. That gave me a practical experience in a real life company, what they secure, what they work on, and how they approach this. I was reporting to a senior person, so they coached me through this. So what this gives me is the experience, the market experience itself. Okay. So if you are stuck with money, there are several places you can go for free certificates. Usually Cisco Network Academy and TryAcme are the best. Thank you. Yes, Jeffrey.
Yeah, thank you for the session. It was impactful. I would like to request that you how will you send us the link to the free certifications you're talking about and the council. I can't remember really the abbreviation of the council. The one you said.
EC Council. They are EC Council. I had seen an email.
Just go on.
Yes, EC Council. Their website. They had an offer. I remember them sending me an email of something. Their website. It's online. Find them. EC Council.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
Brian, maybe
Yes.
something else you can do is these resources, you can just add them to your slides and then share the slides.
Okay.
Yeah, with me, and then
Okay.
I can share the slides with them.
I can do that. Hope I'll do that.
Thank you. Yes,
Okay.
Gary?
Hello, I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yes, sir. You mentioned about a local setup for your labs. So I wanted to know which are the tools that we can use for our personal practices, assuming you want to set up a workstation for yourself so that you can add some of those in your portfolio.
Okay. Thank you for that, Gary. So for a local setup for this, you need a virtualization software, of course. Your machine needs to be high specs. Then you need virtualization like VMware. Okay. Then set up now several operating systems, maybe 2 Windows and a server. Or you can also set up usually what you need is, like, most organizations will use Windows. So you find most people will set up 3 Windows desktops and then configure them such a way that they mimic a certain user, then install Kali Linux in another VM, and then you are in a network, a local network, of course, so you can now mess around with your network in your virtual network. When you go into things like now trying to gets vulnerabilities in maybe things like website, you can set up the DVWA, the Damn Vulnerable Web Application. This will give you web security practice. Okay, so there are also tools for network simulations like Wireshark, where you can capture packets and then analyze them and see what an attacker would see if they are on a network. You can use Cisco packet tracers, which now you can design the routes, the switches, the firewalls. You can, the network design part we talked about, Cisco packet tracer will help you design a complete network virtually before you go into the network. Okay, we have PFFence, which is an open source firewall, which if you want to simulate maybe firewall configs, I think Sophos also have a trial for their firewall, so you can try that too. So scenarios that you can maybe practice are maybe scanning. Okay, scan using network, use OpenVAS or Nikto to do vulnerability scanning, use Metasploit now to exploit vulnerabilities that you'll find. And now once you find those vulnerabilities, both on Windows and Linux, you can now harden them. You can secure them even more. Okay, I hope that gives you a basic of what you need. Okay.
Thank you. Geoffrey?
Just a request. I've been experiencing issues because there's some crazy rainfall. Will this session be uploaded?
Yes, it will be on the Cybersecurity YouTube channel.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Calvin? Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Kevin.
Okay, I've done those applications. That is from the
You are not audible.
Yeah, your volume is very low.
saying I have done those pre-certifications from Cisco in CISSM security, developer suite, and NPL security from yeah. And I was asking, how can I get the real life experience? Waited for learning the security role. I had been lacking is experience, job place experience. How can you?
Okay, so if I got your question, so from my experience, what I did myself is I volunteered. So you can, most organizations will not trust you with their data if you are not seasoned. And if they do, you'll be really supervised a lot. So what you can do now, build a portfolio for yourself. Certifications are cool, but of course, projects are more cooler. Build a portfolio for yourself. Show that you can really do what you can really walk the talk. Get involved in the security community. Okay, join forums, CTF games. I've seen employers who go to CTF competitions, capture the flag, and then hire people from there who they can actually see that they can do this. Because if you can win maybe or come second or third in a capture the flag competition, maybe you can secure the network or do cybersecurity. So some hire from there. I've seen others who also hire from meetups like this one. You find that there might be employers here who are looking for you. So do that too. And also the best startup now, if you want to go deeply into corporate, is start applying for the entry-level roles or internships. You'll find a lot of them posted online. So your resume needs to be actually what you say it is. If you tell me that you can do penetration testing and then you come and I give you a Windows machine and a Linux Kali Linux machine and you can't do actual penetration testing or find a vulnerability, a simple vulnerability, then it lowers your score for the next intern. So usually entry-level roles should give you a leeway into the market. You might not get the first 5 or so jobs, but when you go into an interview about network security or cybersecurity, it will give you now an idea of next. This is what enterprises want. This is what organizations want. Okay, and if you can volunteer for sessions like this, where you can also teach a specific tool that you know, it will showcase yourself to the market. I will know that he knows how to do open VAS scanning or NICTO or Metasploit. So now if maybe I need something and I don't have the capacity to go and start searching, I can pinpoint a specific person and say, I need you, come and solve my problem for me. Okay. Nicole and Emmanuel's hands are up. Emmanuel?
Yes, mine was just a follow-up on the previous question. So when it comes to interviews, the technical interviews, could you please take us through, for example, an example of what an interview would be like? So let's say for a network security interview for an entry level, so that at least we can have an idea of what to expect. And also you could tell us what you would expect if you are the interviewer in such a scenario. Thanks.
Okay. So an entry-level network security technical interview, you'll have probably three scenarios where the scenario-based questions, there's the knowledge-based questions, and then the practical-based questions. So I might ask you a question like, quote unquote, you are working as a junior security analyst, you received an alert from our IDS, the intrusion detection system, about a large number of failed logins attempts to say the file server or the web server. Now, what do you do? So you find that in such a case, they want to see your logical thinking. How do you solve your problems? Are you aware of tools that are required in such a scenario? Are you aware of one of the things we mentioned, which is the incident response steps? Okay. So maybe an answer would be like, I would first verify if the alert is legitimate by checking the logs and the source IP. If it looks like a brute force, I would identify which accounts are being targeted and then block the source IP if needed and alert the team. I'd also check for any successful logins from that IP. Then I'd create an incident report and monitor for follow-ups. Okay. So that is a scenario-based example where you are given a scenario and then asked to address the scenario. Then we have a knowledge-based question, like I might ask you, what is the difference between a firewall and a IDS? Or what is the difference between an intrusion detection system, IDS, and intrusion prevention system, IPS? Okay, so now I want to know if you really know the theory part of the network security or the cyber security. Or I can ask you a question like, what are the common ports and protocols that I should monitor in network security? So I want to know if you know which are the most vulnerable areas of our network, of any network. I can also ask, what is a DMZ and what is its use in a network? Okay, then you can then be asked now the practical part, the way is the hands-on, where you can be asked, for example, now, how would you scan a network using Nmap? Now they want to see now, do you think like an attacker? Can you now actually exploit a network? Okay, or if you say you have experience in this or you can do this, they can now ask you, what tools have you used to monitor network traffic and logs? So now they want to see if you have actually done this. Okay, or for example, I can also ask you, what is the first thing you check if a server is not reachable on the network? Okay, a user working remotely is trying to download files and the server is not reachable. What is the first thing do you do? Okay, so what the best way to answer is do not bluff or don't. If you don't know, just say you don't know, because there's no way you can lie yourself to an Nmap question if you have never used Nmap. And also, other than memorize the answers, you need to show the the actual process itself. If you have memorized how to use Nmap and then you're presented with a scenario that you have not memorized, you'll fumble. Okay, so if you have projects maybe in your home lab or TryHackMe, then you need to address to talk about those specific projects. If you have used Nmap in your home lab, talk about the actual Nmap, how you did it in your home lab. I did my network, I scanned it, I found these vulnerabilities, I exploited them this way. So you need to show the process itself other than the memorized answers. Thank you. Yes, Maina.
Hello, Brian. Thank you for this session. My question is targeted mostly for software developers who are in this meeting. If you were to advise them today about how to secure their applications during the building and deployment, what would you say to them on how to build secure and deploy secure? Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. So in developers, so this is what we call DevSecOps, or integrate security into coding. Okay, so the best way to approach this is, instead of building application and then implementing security as an afterthought, build tool security from day one. So personally, I am good with Laravel. So when I'm designing or I'm coding an application from scratch, I don't first complete the application and then now start coming to hash the passwords, to secure the database, to ensure that there is access control. I build with this from day one. So you need also to understand what are the vulnerabilities in the specific stack you'll be using: Vue.js, Inertia, Laravel, Django, Flask, whatever it is. You need to know exactly what are the vulnerabilities that are there. So the coding practices, you need to learn the OWASP top 10 because they are your holy grail in any security mechanism, whether you're a software dev or a cybersecurity person. You need to learn the OWASP top 10: SQL injection, XSS, broken authentication, etc. So in usually when integrating security, it will be, sometimes you will find that there are certain modules that want to marry each other. So the one thing one developer told me is that you modularize your application such that your application can work as separate modules. I have a module for login, I have a module for registration. They can work together, yes, but they are separate modules, so that if login fails, this does not mean that because login failed, users cannot register. Okay, now I secure login in itself. When you're logging in, I need to encrypt your password. I need to check if it is hashed. I need to do etc, blah, 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 blah. If it is an ERP, for example, and it has a finance and maybe IT and maybe payment, etc, you modularize it, make each module work on its own, but also it can work with others, such that now if I want to secure the finance module, I can now secure it on itself. What does finance need? Which data do they need? What data do I need now to allow them to access? How do I encrypt or hash the data? Okay, so that now you approach it from, I'm trying to remember the name, how it's called, it's disappearing. So, but basically it is like you code from scratch with security in mind. So your security will be in your Git commits, for example, your code reviews, your build pipelines, your unit tests, etc. I don't know if that answers your question, Martin.
Yes, it does. Thank you,
Okay.
Brian.
Okay. Okay. Hope, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. Ronald, do you have a question?
I was to react and then
Sorry, you have muted yourself.
I didn't have a question, but I can try ask a question.
Please.
So once I tried coming up with a lab with using Vagrant, then somehow it became challenging. So what would you advise me as? So I had this Windows Server 2019, Kali Linux, Ubuntu Server, and 2 Windows machines, and a vulnerable web server. So in a certain point, it became challenging to me. What will be your advice to me?
I don't know specifically what was the issue, but hats off for trying a full Vagrant-based lab with Windows. That's a real enterprise setup, and it takes a lot of guts. Well, Vagrant was built with Linux in mind, so when you're automating Windows, especially Server Edition, Vagrant is a bit messy. So you might need the .box files and some custom PowerShell scripts to automate that. Also, licensing can be an issue too with that. Getting all the 3 OSs, depending on if you're using VMware or Hyper-V, it might be easy. So I also don't know, especially the specific network design you wanted to do. But now the problem with Vagrant is if one VM fails, the whole script will halt. So you find that maybe some boxes will need more RAM or CPU and may crash silently. Okay, or maybe the sync. So maybe you can keep it simple and try one VM at a time. Start the manual build, then automate in maybe install VirtualBox, then set up Kali, then add Ubuntu, one at a time, and then once you install 2, you test one at a time, each building on the last one. And also use Vagrant for Linux only tests, because with Windows Linux, Vagrant will really give you a headache. You can talk to me and maybe we can try and figure out what exactly was your problem. I'll leave my email here on this chat.
It's okay.
Okay. Victor?
Thank you. Sorry, I dropped off. I lost power. So let's have Victor as the last question because of time, and then we can wrap up.
Okay.
So Brian, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, Victor.
Person in this field, frankly, they wanted to know what is the best way to venture into security. Because I have done basically DNA. Now I want to venture in security. I want to know how to venture into it and what's the best way to approach it.
Okay, I think this is tied to one of the question which was asked earlier, someone who had done the free sats and want to venture in. So what worked for me, like I said earlier, was I volunteered. Then this gave me a launch pad to now go into the consulting where people now actually refer me, etc. But now if you are on yourself and this will usually boil down to how trusting can you be with an organization's data. So you find that now you will have to do like the entry level, apply for the entry level jobs, the volunteer jobs, the internship jobs, and they will actually take you. I know a lot of people who do that and they use that as their launch pad now to get into the corporate paying world. So by volunteering and then using platforms like this now to connect with other like-minded people who actually now want to, you can pull your mind together and now maybe address a solution, maybe come up with I've seen employers also hire people from blog posts. Someone wrote a very good blog post about Openverse, and it was so nice that people actually wanted out the experience in their own network. Another thing is I mentioned is the competition like the Capture the Flag, which is the most common one. You find that employers hang around those forums where there are hacking competitions, and then they will approach you now if they see that you can demonstrate like real life skills that you can actually implement when they hire you or when they ask you to consult for them. So what it comes down to is building your portfolio, packaging yourself such that now when it comes to network security, I know now I can look at Brian and Brian will have this solution for me. So if you are not now known, you need now to start by going into the actual job market, getting yourself interviews, knowing what is required now in interviews, because 2 or 3 interviews will give you a firm basics of what is actually required by employers in the market. And you might not also want to be employed, you might want to be a consultant where now you are not full-time, but they reach out to you when they have a problem. So each scenario will apply itself differently. Thank you. Hope you're with us.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Thank you so much. Just thank you for taking the questions, for giving us your time, and even just going through networks in such a unique way and a very relatable way to what is there in the field, best practices, the do's, and so on. So you can just give your last remarks, and then I can bring everything to a close.
Generally, I'd like to encourage people who are out here that cybersecurity is a journey. It will never really end. So when you want to get into this complex, the blanket field of cybersecurity, you must be ready to learn always. And also remember that you need to build your network, not just in the lab, but also out here with the peers, engage in certification programs, those labs. When you go to take your certifications, make sure you interact with the people there, go to events, learn how the CEOs approach, want their networks approach. When you go to events, you'll meet with other CISOs, okay? And then that will give you maybe motivation. If you might feel that you are not adequate enough, it will make you motivated enough to even pursue it even more. So I really wish everyone all the best here, and feel free to reach out via LinkedIn or email, etc. Let me drop my email here. Thank you, Hope.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You can also just add it to the slides because I'll be sharing the slides with us in the meeting. Here, I think what you have access to is the Q&A. So if you're posting it on the call, the Q&A is what you can use.
Okay, let me share it in the slide and then I'll share it with you.
Thank you. So thank you so much, Brian. Thank you, everyone, for the very lively participation and very relatable questions. Thank you, everyone, and let's have a good night. Bye. See you next Thursday.
Thank you. Have a good night too.
Good night. Good night.